Our members for being here. It's been quite a challenging day getting to all the places we're supposed to be and figure out what time we're supposed to be somewhere. But thank all you folks for being here with us. We'll try not to keep you bored too bad this afternoon. Before we get started, we're going to ask Chairman Dixon to lead us in a word of prayer.
Will you join with me? Father, we are thankful to have the opportunity to be here. We ask that you'll be a part of these proceedings. Guide us and direct us. We lift up those who are traveling. We lift up those who have been affected by the storms. And we thank you for what you do for us. We offer it all to you now in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Anybody visiting with us for the first time today? Not had the great privilege of sitting in on this meeting? All right. Nobody wants to raise their hand and say they're... Hey. Okay. And good to have you, sir. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tom, the intern. I'm still trying to earn my last name.
And you're working with Chairman Cooper?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good to have you with us today, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to raise that hand. Appreciate that. All right. We've got several items on the agenda, and Mr. Chairman Dixon, you had a bill you passed out of subcommittee this week.
House Bill 18 received a due pass recommendation. The author, Representative Spencer, is here to present it.
All right. Representative Spencer, we're going to ask you. I promised you can go first. I know everybody's got other meetings, but if you'll come up and tell us your proposition, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Bring you House Bill 18. Make sure that we got the right LC. It's LC 362602. This bill essentially exempts aerospace engineers from state licensing. Currently, right now, the state of Georgia requires all engineers to be licensed. But the problem is the engineering licensure for engineers, for aerospace engineers, they have not been tested in this state for 15 years, so there's really no apparatus to test these folks. Most of their credentialing falls under the FAA and in some cases the Department of Defense. They go through their guidelines and credentialing processes. Another state that does this is the state of Florida. They do this because they have an aerospace industry there, and this has made them pretty competitive. But to specifically sort of go into some detail, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics is the organization that used to provide the testing, but they no longer do this. They used to serve that role. So essentially the FAA and the Department of Defense for other matters essentially credentials these folks. So the state of Georgia has a strong aviation community. We are getting ready down on my neck of the woods to potentially attract a spaceport. That would bring in engineers to our state and lead to many high-skilled workers in our workforce, especially down in southeast Georgia and on the coast. So this would make us very competitive with the state of Florida. Essentially what I did is look at their statute, and I essentially mirrored what they've done in the state of Florida, and there's not been any litigation in the state of Florida on this issue. So that is the bill in a nutshell, and I'll take any questions you might have, Mr. Chairman and committee.
I don't believe there were any opposition to the bill, and I believe the Secretary of State's office is in complete agreement with this. I think I saw the lady from the Secretary of State. Oh, my friend Chuck. Y'all are good with this? All right. Yes, sir.
Just one comment. I want to thank you for bringing this bill, Representative Spencer. Coming out of as a program manager out of the aerospace and defense industries, any indirect costs that we can avoid with this is just going to add to our competitiveness, vis-a-vis other states. And I think this is a great move. It's been in place for years, like you said. It's just kind of a legacy that I think we can do away with.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The Georgia Tech folks caught me coming out of the chamber this morning and said they're very happy with this legislation.
They are.
Good to see this go forward. All right. Any questions? I see none. All right, Mr. Chairman.
I move due pass recommendation for House Bill 18.
Got moved, several seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, sir.
Thank you very much.
Got you in and out. Go to rules. We'll get it to you. Thank you very much. All right, our first alcohol bill. Let's see. Well, no, we're not. This is a different one. We're going to hear from Representative Petrie. Coming up, House Bill 340. You got a copy of that legislation, sir?
I do.
Let's make sure we're on the right LC.
Yes, sir. We'll do that. And I'm glad to see Chairman Powell here. I was worried I was missing another committee meeting. Looks like I'm okay.
Okay,
So
well, good deal.
Good. Listen, yes. Well, this is House Bill 340, LC 256472.
All right, LC 256472. We're good to go, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, this is a bill that I sponsored for the Chatham County delegation that relates to actually just amends a very small piece of a bill that was passed last year, allowing the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sunday during the St. Patrick's Day celebration. And the intent was down in Savannah, obviously, we have a big celebration on St. Patrick's Day. Now, because the law has changed, bars are able to sell, grocery stores, restaurants, and in the festival zone, all of those individuals are able to sell alcohol, but bars otherwise could not be. So last year, a bill was passed to allow for this, but the language stated that the term St. Patrick's Day holiday period means March 16th through March 18th of each year. Well, this year, St. Pat's, we just missed it. And so Sunday this year, this fix that I guess was purported to be in last year has failed. And so the new language, all I've done is scratch through March 16th through March 18th of each year with an annual period of consecutive calendar days not exceeding 4 days, which shall include March 17th as part of such period. So we're trying to just do, I guess, what was attempted to be done last year to allow Sunday sales only on St. Patrick's Day during a 4-day celebration.
And I can say that's a sad commentary on this committee that we couldn't look ahead 1 year on a calendar.
I wasn't going to say that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'll lay the blame on all of us because I got 18 or 20 members of this committee, and we didn't think about looking ahead 1 year to check the calendar, I guess. So thank you for this fix. I take it you've got no opposition. Anybody on this legislation? I got a question down here.
I have not to date. No, sir.
All right. All right, lighten up here. Let's see. Number 13.
Lucky 13.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're just looking at the days of the week here. If the 17th is on a Wednesday, you would have to choose the weekend prior to it, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Correct. But essentially, Wednesday is the only day that would be excluded with this language, because you got a Sunday including 4 days either way. That's
now. Go ahead, sir.
I mean, that's...
Well, what are you going to do when St. Patrick falls on Wednesday? We're going to have to come. It won't matter then because it's not a weekend.
That's correct.
It won't matter because that's during the week anyway.
That's correct.
Okay. So
Wednesday would be the only day
Sunday.
when you wouldn't have a
change it to 5 days, and you can.
Yeah, a 4-day celebration was the most that everyone at home was comfortable with. I think Mickey might be able to speak to that as well. That is what City Council and others thought was appropriate, the maximum time frame that we would consider a celebration period, and so that's all we're asking.
You think folks will really celebrate 5 days? Or?
Well, I'm a native Savannian, so I have to tell you, oftentimes it lasts a lot longer than that.
I started to say it's a year-long party down there, isn't it?
We have a long party, we do. But
all right, I got 24.
If this we don't make this adjustment, it'd be a significant revenue loss, wouldn't it?
It would be a very significant revenue loss, and it's interesting. The restaurants down on River Street and otherwise have the ability to sell, and so they can set up on the street and sell alcohol, but a bar next door to them cannot. So there's an issue of fairness and certainly an issue of revenue loss. Absolutely.
Thank you.
for the local community and for the state. That's correct.
Now, we can go 5 days if you want us to.
I'm good with what you guys want.
This is all we ask, sir.
Number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say for the record that Representative Rogers and me were not on this committee last year, and we would have totally caught it if we were.
Okay,
Just
well,
saying.
thank y'all. All right. Appreciate that commentary. I'm sure that would have been caught if y'all were here. I'm not saying that. Representative Rogers, you wave, or was that your?
I did wait, but I don't know what to say about being defended by Representative Rakestraw. But I guess I'm a little bit confused about all the dates. Based on everything I've seen, I thought that St. Patrick's Day started on January 1st in Savannah and ended New Year's Eve. Is that not true?
Some would say that it's
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
That's what my colleague, Chairman Stevens, assures me of. Thank you.
That's right.
All right. I think we have gone down to the bottom of questions now. Proper time. I got a motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to move that we pass along House Bill 340.
All right. Got a move and second that we pass it. Any other discussion? All in favor, let them say an aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
We'll get
Chairman.
you into rules, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Representative Harold, do you want to come? There you are. We're going to take up House Bill 85. If that'd be all right, Representative.
Yes, sir.
And I think your mic is on there.
I believe so.
House Bill 85. Let's look at this little piece.
House Bill 85 is LC 362597. And what this deals with is property that is formerly was known as Central State Hospital. There's a number of buildings down there. The state still operates in some buildings, but much of the property is being surplused and going into the private sector. So in working with the chairman throughout the summer on the task force, as well as speaking to the Development Authority, and Representative Kidd, I think, is here, and some in that community see this as an opportunity to remove an existing prohibition on that property with regard to alcohol, so that it would be more suitable for sale into the private sector for development. They anticipate one day that it might be developed for any number of uses, retail uses that might include the sale of alcohol. Could be grocery stores, could be restaurants, could be hotels, or what have you. So this is an effort to remove that prohibition to allow the private development of the property. I've spoken with the Department of Behavioral Health, and they are still going to continue to use portions of that property. So if there's any additional concern, I'll be glad to continue working with them as it moves through to the Senate. But at the moment, everybody seems to be comfortable with this, the removal of this language. Be glad to answer any questions, and would certainly ask for your support.
All right, number 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you also need to strike it in lines 3 and 4?
In our title, I don't believe so.
No.
No, that's just the heading there, I think. Is anybody here to speak for or against the legislation? I know Representative Kidd is all in favor of this. He's any questions by the committee? All right, Representative or Chairman Powell, what's your number over there, sir?
16.
I'd like to move that this committee approve House Bill 85. All right, we got a move on 85. Got a second by Chairman Dixon. Any discussion on House Bill 85? Hearing none. All in favor of approving this, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right. That's good to go, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and take up House Bill 261, if you don't mind. You
Yes,
got
sir.
that one, sir?
Yes, sir. Members of the committee have a substitute to House Bill 261 in your packet. It's LC 362695S. just to cover the items that were changed in the substitute, we just wanted to clarify that this would apply to any county or municipal owned and operated airport. So initially it read municipal governing authority only, so we inserted county or municipal governing authority. And what this would allow is for any airport that is owned or operated by a county or city that has already had a referendum with regard to Sunday sales. It's already passed in that community, so they're already available. It doesn't require any additional referendum. That governing body could make a decision on the Sunday sales hours in those retailers operating in the airport. And if you look on line 17, in what is termed a sterile area, this is under a federal code, and basically what that means is you would have to be a ticketed passenger beyond the security. So this is ideally, clearly, Hartsville-Jackson is one of the airports that would fall under this bill if it is to pass into law. And as you know, with international travelers and other, we have people from all over the world coming through Hartsville-Jackson, and this bill would allow the city and the governing authorities to make a decision to permit the sales on Sunday as early as 5 a.m. So, for example, you might have an international traveler that lands at the airport, Hartsville-Jackson, at 5:30 in the morning, and on that person's time, it's dinner time. And again, the only areas that could serve that early would be those behind the sterile area. So these are ticketed passengers. The expansion also to include counties and cities would permit, if there are other airports that meet that threshold around the state operated by city or county, they would also be able to make the same determination. It's my understanding that both GMA and ACCG support, obviously the city of Atlanta supports. I'm not aware of any opposition voiced to date on this measure, but be glad to answer any questions on the proposal.
Thank you, Representative. Chairman Taylor, do you have a question?
Yeah, so Representative Harrell, this is the beer. It's not just for breakfast anymore, Bill, or?
For each member to decide for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have anyone else here? I don't see anybody on the sign-up sheet. We do have a sign-up sheet down front if anybody was going to speak on any piece of legislation. If you didn't get a chance to sign up, we're open at this time if you've got opinion one way or the other or have a feeling. All right, it's awfully quiet in here. I had no other questions from the committee. All right, Chairman Powell, number 16, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move this committee to adopt substitute HB 261 LC 362695S.
All right, we got a motion. Got another second by Chairman Dixon. Any discussions? All in favor, let them say an aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, Representative, you have been on a roll, sir. You feel like doing one more?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to look at House Bill 276. And as we get into this, there's too many people to think that worked on this bill this summer. We had several meetings. This is our study bill, the Code 3 revision bill that we worked on this summer. And I just got to tell you, Representative Harrell was the go-to guy on this. He absolutely worked just a tremendous amount on this piece of legislation. And I thank you for it. And I thank all the partners we had coming into our meetings, the Department of Revenue, all the stakeholders that showed up and had input, committee members that worked with us. But I appreciate your work on this, my friend.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Chairman.
we're going to leave it up to you to shepherd this thing through now.
Thank you very much. This is a larger bill that I know many of you haven't been exposed to before, so we'll start on page 1, line 1. I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
As the chairman said, this is a result of our study committee this summer. And in your packet, in addition to the bill, there's a little one-page, two-sided memo that I prepared. It looks like a daunting bill, but in reality, it is not. And it's my understanding that we're going to have just a hearing today and take no action. So each of you will have a little more time to consider the proposal before we come back and vote on it. But I'm going to go through the memo and kind of, rather than just the bill. But again, the result of the study committee, which charged us to look at undefined terms and outdated terminology that's existing in the code and try to clean that up. And then the chairman charged us with not to make any modifications that would rise to a level of a substantive change in the industry. So this 50-page bill, quite frankly, doesn't impact materially the operation of the industry. And the first section of the bill that starts on the top of page 2, what we've done is we've pulled a number of definitions that are contained throughout the code or throughout the title and moved those definitions to the very front of the title. So in this section 312, it'll contain many of the definitions, not all. There are still other terms defined in the title, but many of the definitions up front. It'll bring some clarity to those definitions. Those are the definitions that, once defined, are used consistently throughout the title. And so we think that again, brings clarity and improves the ease of use. If you look on the little memo I gave you, the very top there talks about Section 1. Obviously, every time we moved a definition from somewhere in that title up to the very front in Section 312, then we had to make a change to the title where we moved the definition from. So you have listed there all these other sections in this 50-page bill where, in fact, all we did in most cases was move a term from a particular section up to the front. So, but that makes for a 50-page bill every time you start making these rearrangements. The second, in Section 2, which repeals an outdated code section 313, just completely repeals it, outdated, not used anymore. Section 4, what we did in Section 4, which is on page 7, is similar to the definitions. We took a number of the occupational licenses that were found in various sections of the title and tried to bring them also to a single point here. And this is the Section 325.1. And again, the intent is to clarify the code, make it easier to find all the licensing requirements, and just to improve clarity and ease of use. Just like with the definitions, every time we moved a license requirement from wherever it sits today in the title up to this new section, it meant that we had to modify, that other section. So on the memo again, where it talks about Section 4, moving these occupational licenses, you'll see the sections 22, 36, 41, and 55. Those are all the code sections that were impacted by moving those license requirements up to this new section of the title. So again, many pages were affected for making that change. If you flip back to Section 16 in the bill, this, again, is the exact same language with regard to the former Central State Hospital property that you just moved due pass on. So it's included in both the cleanup bill as well as the standalone. I've learned in my 5 years down here that sometimes you need to run two bills when something as important as the bill you just moved to rules is for the community to move that property into private development. We want to make sure that it gets a hearing all on its own. The verbiage is identical. If the verbiage in one changes, we'll make sure we modify the other, but it's the exact same language there. If you move to Section 20, which is on the bottom of page 19, there was a small modification just to reflect what's actually going on in the industry, and you'll see that where it refers on 668, it refers to the correct subsection. On the back side of the memo, again in Section 21, we are repealing some state requirements with regard to signage. Quite frankly, they are outdated and are not in practice. The state is not actively regulating this signage, and we're leaving that to the locals, where most of our local communities have sign ordinances. You will see one modification when we come back to actually vote on this bill, where GMA has asked us to make an addition to these sections that deal with signage to give the locals time to adopt any modifications of the ordinances that they may need to adopt. So that's fine with me. I have no objection to that. So when we actually vote on this bill, that is one modification you'll see, putting in language with regard to signage, and signage appears in 3 or 4 places to allow the locals additional time to adopt their ordinances to reflect that the signage requirements will be within their control and no longer at the state level. The same is true in Section 30, also deals with signage. The same, and then on Section 33, which is found on page 27, we are at the bottom of that page on starting on line 929. We're repealing just some outdated language that dealt with going back to 1993. So, whatever happened has happened. It's no longer, it's done. This is just outdated language that we are repealing from the code there. If you flip over to Section 39, which is on page 30 of the bill, again, we're just clarifying this deals with a home brewer, that a home brewer is not required to be licensed. Again, that is the practice today. Home brewers are not required to get a license, and this just clarifies that. That was in Section 39 on page 30 of the bill. If you look on Section 42, which is on page 33 of the bill, again, this was an outdated provision. Back in the day, cans and bottles and lids used to be stamped with the word Georgia or GA. And we don't stamp our cans or bottles or lids anymore, so this just addresses that outdated provision. On Section 48, which appears on page 35 of the bill, again, we just updated the definition, clarify some language, and makes one other change here on page 36, beginning on line 1235. In current code today, a brew pub is prohibited from offering a sample, but quite frankly, it happens all day, every day. And so we are removing that prohibition of the sampling. Again, I have heard no opposition from anyone with regard to that one minor adjustment there. And that's on lines 1235 and 1236 on page 36. I'm sorry?
Is the quantity involved with the sample defined anywhere?
Not to my knowledge, no. Nor is it at a other retailer, to the best of my knowledge, a restaurant or what have you.
It is with wines, I think, isn't it?
There are some quantity restrictions in a different scenario when you're touring or visiting, some of the manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
But to the best of my knowledge, there's not a quantity restriction at a retailer. No, sir, there's not.
I've got a statement.
I know that distilleries, we did that for Representative Kidd a couple of years ago. That's like a half an ounce, I think, but I don't know.
That's at the manufacturer
at the site.
So
yeah,
it's a different kind of scenario here, and we're not addressing that issue in this bill.
So you could get a 12-ounce sample, or
no, sir.
Okay.
I don't suspect. It'd be my humble opinion. They probably wouldn't want to give you too big a sample because they want to sell it to you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Stevens, you want to start over since you're here?
You mean Mitchell? Yeah, let's, matter of fact, there's some questions I have about the prior bills as well. So let's make a motion that we review.
Thank you for joining us, sir. I'm sure I asked that question.
Section 49 on page 37 simply modifies that our revenue commissioner may, rather than shall, issue an annual permit. Again, that reflects the actual practice and is supported by the department. Section 53, again on page 38, we have revised several definitions, and this, in addition to the definitions that were moved to the front in 312, this provides some additional clarity with regard to vintners or those that manufacture wine. Section 54 on page 39 is very similar language to the home brewer that we spoke about a moment ago. There are citizens that actually make wine at home also. And so we've kind of mirrored those two languages, and this also clarifies that someone that makes wine at home does not have to be a licensed vintner, just as the person that brews beer at home doesn't have to be licensed as a brewer. Number 62, again, is a repealing of a signage. Again, going back to the local control issue. As I mentioned, we'll have a little bit of a cleanup language there given the locals' time. 67, section 67 just provides an updated reference. One of the things we did throughout this bill, too, is where there were code sections and references that may have gotten crossed over the years of editing, we've tried to go through and clean up some of the references there, and that's what happens on section 67. Sections 68 and 69, we're using a new term on sections 68 and 69, and that new term is fermented apple beverage. In the past, we've been using the term cider. And what the situation that we're addressing here is there are products in the marketplace that are called cider that don't meet our state's definition that's in the code today. And the fermented apple beverage is actually taxed as long as it's 6% alcohol by volume or less as a malt beverage. And so by adding this language, creating the new term, a fermented apple beverage, and then if you will flip over to page 48, line 1635, you will see where the tax imposed on that beverage is at the malt beverage rate. So this product, when it exceeds 6% alcohol by volume, is taxed as a wine at a wine rate. So this is a special provision for fermented apple beverages, and that is the same language is used in the next section, 69, also on page 48, down on lines 1651 through 1653. And then the final adjustments, the last thing on the little memo I gave you, are sections 70, 81, and 82 are just updates to various section references. As you can see, it's a 50-page bill with 82 sections, and I have let those that participated throughout the summer in the task force that the chairman held know that today was a reading only, or hearing only, that we would not be voting, and quite frankly asked them to continue to share with me any other concerns that with the bill. Again, they participated throughout the summer, as our chairman mentioned, so we don't believe those concerns will be significant. They will be some similar to the one I mentioned to you with the date that we anticipate from GMA. And so with that, I would be glad to answer any other questions from the committee on the work. And I do appreciate, Chairman Maxwell and Chairman Powell, the chairman of our alcohol subcommittee, for allowing me to carry this bill. I think I'm not sure if I'm being rewarded or punished.
Well, for me, it's definitely a reward. And I missed one of our most important people at the table this summer that helped us with this, and she worked absolutely just a Herculean effort. Sean Marie, I apologize for not mentioning you to start with, ma'am. You put this together, and we came back. We changed after change after change after change, and it got to be where it wasn't just a simple little change. It was going through all these sections, having to track down where everything was moved, what needed to be stricken. Thank you so very much, ma'am, for your work. It was just a tremendous effort, and it's greatly appreciated. All right, we got one question. Y'all, 52 pages, surely somebody's going to have a question here. Representative Braddock, is this you?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in Section 54, what is the differentiation about an individual selling? There's no provision about them not being able to sell what they produce. And then how long does it take an individual to drink 200 gallons of wine?
Again, that's for each member to decide for themselves.
I estimated, I had somebody figure that for me today. It's approximately 1,000 bottles of wine, 750. Well, I think that's right. About 1,000 bottles of wine.
About 2 to 3 bottles a day.
Well,
I guess that's doable. I don't know.
That's doable. Okay. All right.
Well, and I should say that the quantity was not changed in this.
No,
in this
it's what's been there.
Yeah.
So, but the question is there any rules about they can't sell it? Like if they wanted to make it and sell it to a friend?
Well,
is
again,
that acceptable?
we didn't make any modification to existing law in this cleanup bill, but they are prohibited from selling to anyone wine that you make in your own home, which is the same for beer that you brew at home.
So there's a provision for that elsewhere? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Harrell, I just need clarification. Did you say that the fermented apple beverage is now a replacement of the prior apple cider terminology?
Yes, ma'am. And that was largely because we have a number of ciders in the marketplace. There are pears ciders, there are apple cider, all sorts of cider product in the marketplace in varying degrees or varying ranges of alcohol content. And within Georgia, the fermented apple beverage is taxed at, when it's 6% or lower alcohol by volume, at the malt beverage rate, and above that at the wine rate. So we needed to create this new term to address that single product within a wider range of products that have the cider name.
Now, did we change that to put it under malt beverage, or how did we list cider now? Is it, we took out cider, didn't we? I'm trying to look here under, I know we struck hard cider up here, which we changed to this other one. I can't. Did we list it as fortified? It's not a fortified wine. We got fermented apple beverages. I'm trying to. Did we do anything with that?
I think other than creating the fermented apple beverage, then we didn't. That, if I recall correctly, that meant we didn't have to do anything more with cider.
Okay. It falls under the malt.
It was the fermented apple beverage that we defined as, below 6% ABV. To tax it as a malt was the only issue that we addressed, as I recall, with regard to that.
Okay.
I'll confirm again and get back with you and make sure that's accurate, but I believe that's true.
You're through. Okay. Any other questions?
And as I've, again, to the committee, as I have with everyone in the industry, as you have a chance to kind of digest, although I went very quick and very brief, please come with me with questions or concerns, and I offered everybody in the industry that this continues to be a work in progress, and so if there are other minor modifications that need to be made before we come back and ask for your vote, then we'll have those in a substitute bill.
All right. And you've got one change you know of now and possible a couple others that you're going to be presenting the next time we do this when
Yes,
we take
sir.
a vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And what I would like to do with your blessing is we'll vet those within the industry and with the committee, and then we'll embed them all in a substitute.
All
and
right.
try to, as you had kind of instructed before, if this is going to move through the House and cross to the Senate, we probably, we want it to be as clean and perfected as bill as possible. We don't want to, we want it ideally not to be modified once we finish the work of your committee.
Excuse me. Do you think we can get this ready by next Tuesday?
Yes, sir.
For our meeting next Tuesday and try to move this out?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Do we have anything else for the good of the order? Was there anybody here to speak on this bill? I didn't see anybody sign up. Does anybody at all feel a burning desire and need to talk about this? We want to hear you if you've got issues on this. We'd like to bring it out now before we get ready to vote and then something pops up. We do not want that to happen if we can help it. We would like to know beforehand. All right. Anything else for the committee today? If not, I think we will adjourn. Thank you very much.